Hi everyone, this is Mary Rita, and we're going to show you some tricks that we found on making the mask.
I found some things that you can do to make it easier. So I'm going to show you some ways. Okay everyone, I started out with the part that gave me a hard time was the pleats. So I made 2 or 3 of them before I decided how I wanted the pleats to go. So I found these measurements right here, and then I come over to my fabric, and then I mark those on my fabric at these at a yard and an inch and a fourth, 2.5 inches, 3, 4 1/4, 4 7/8, and 5. And with that, I have found that I start with my 2.5, and I will fold it up to my 1 1/4. So, and I'm starting on the back of the material where my opening is for the filter. So then I'll pin it on this side, and then I go over and I'm going to do that top pleat again, and you're doing 1 pleat at a time. So when I get this finished, I have this pleat done all the way across. When I get those all pinned, it's going to look like this. I've got my pins, here's my opening, here's my pleats. I am going to just do just a basting stitch, or just a single stitch right down here on the edge to hold my pleats in place. With that, make sure your pleats don't double back on you. So you might have to stop, lift up your foot to make sure those pleats stay that way. Be careful not to run over your pins. That will cause your needle breakage. So you're going to do that to both sides. Now you're ready to put on the binding piece. Now with this binding piece, I marked it. It is 2 inches by 6 inches. I found with the 6 inch that was long enough. And so I took and marked it halfway, so 1 inch in, and then another 1/2 inch in, or from the edge over here. Now I can take it to the iron, and I can iron this flap over just to my center line. It looks something like this with it ironed. Then I iron it one more time to find my center here. Now I'm ready to sew. With it being 6 inches, I now can put this on here like this, and I have quite a bit that wraps around, and I have found that helps with when you go to thread your elastic through there. If you've got quite a bit, overlapping, so that when you feed your bobbin up through there, that it's going to make it easier. Now you don't want this so long that these two overlap, but you do want them over there quite a ways, and I found that makes it easier to put that bobbin up through there to string my elastic through. When you turn to make your binding go around, you've got all of this fullness right here. So if I sew exactly on that line, this is going to be a little short. So I have been coming up and just sewing just to the tad bit on this side of that line. It's going to look like that. Let me sew that and I'll show it to you. It's just off of that line. So now when I go to flip this around, and I fold it, that halfway mark is now on top of that line, and I can make that come across there. I'm going to glue these guys down, but I'm going to glue them down so that they're not right here next to the edge, because I don't know how many of us have done this, and when you go to fold it over, you got this guy sticking out here. And I put some on the inside of that flap, enough that it sticks that down, and then I put a little bit more on the outside of that, so that when I go to put this down, do you see I don't have it coming all the way out there to the edge? So now these are secured down, so when I flip this around, those pieces aren't sticking out anymore, they're glued down. And I have found that if I start, instead of coming from the off the edge onto the edge, if I start on the edge and back up a little bit, that it's easier to do that. And then I'm ready to start. Now, if you get to this point and you're having trouble, you can take another pin and kind of help you push. My next thing is to put the elastic through. And Mary has these things here, and they're called ballpoint bodkins. And they work awesome for putting this elastic through. And I told you earlier, making that fold come down farther, it makes it easier for us to slide that through. I just take my elastic and I put it through here. Pull this just a little bit. That doesn't, and then you're ready just to pull it through. It pulls your elastic through. Since elastic is in short supply, I am now cutting my elastic to 9 inches. I am overlapping it just a little bit, and then I'm sewing it on this side and then sewing it on this side to secure my elastic. Makes it easier to pull through. Elastic is hard to sew, so you want to make sure that you sew across the elastic.
Thank you everyone for joining us today, and let me know if you have any questions on making the mask or anything. Please be safe, and hope we can see you again soon. If you have any questions on supplies or how to do the mask, feel free to call me. Y'all be safe. Good seeing y'all.